It said it doesn't count because she waited too long.
Yeah, so there was this thing called the paycheck accrual rule, right? This legislative piece in the legislative branch in the overall law that said her 180 days had elapsed. And then what did, she passed away this year, Supreme Court Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she looked at the ruling, they lost, she wrote a dissenting opinion. So she was on the losing side of the Supreme Court case. What did Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court justice, say needed to be done?
Congress needed to clarify the law.
Great. So essentially, the Supreme Court said, listen, we're not a law writing branch. We're a law deciding branch. We interpret the law and we make the best ruling on what the law says and what the law means, but we can't write the law. So if you don't like our ruling, then you should go and rewrite the law. And so what did Lilly do with that information? We're almost done with the review. What did Lilly do?
Took it to Congress.
Yeah, not only did she take it to Congress, right, but she started spreading the news all over the radio, on Good Morning America, on anything she could get her hands on. She really started to advocate and make all of us as citizens aware of this issue. And then once it got steam, then she was able to put pressure on Congress to rewrite the law. And who signed that new piece of legislation? What president? Once it finally got pushed through Congress, who signed it? This is the snowball one.
Obama.
Yeah, President Obama. That was actually the first law he ever signed as president. So a couple of things there. One person, I feel like in this this federal republic that we have, one person can make a difference. You saw that right there. You're going to see it again today with YICWO. One person really, truly can advocate and make a difference. And even the bigger thing that I wanted you to get out of it was you saw hopefully how the three branches were working against and with each other. All right. Okay. So today, if you haven't already, go to your Google Classroom. And when you open that up, you will see a PowerPoint. I'm sharing that screen with you. And then you'll see a Word document as well. So today what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be looking at 3 principles in one lesson. All right, so there are 7 principles. We're going to be looking at 4, 5, and 6 here. We're going to be looking at due process. This idea of due process. We're going to be looking at rights. This idea of civil liberties, civil rights, equal protection under the law. All right, just give me a second. So a couple questions to consider for today. And I just want you to just sort of think about them. I've already hit you up with some Lilly stuff. I don't want to get stuck on question and answer all day. Question number 1 to consider: what groups come to mind when you think of unequal treatment in the United States? Is there specific language in the U.S. Constitution to protect groups of people from being discriminated against? Where is that? You hear that a lot, right? You even see it even with the mask thing. People are like, it's my right. Okay, so sort of keep that in mind. When is discrimination occurring? And then what language, actual language in this Constitution is going to protect you from being discriminated against? And then question 3, who is a citizen? Who is a citizen and how do you become a citizen? And then the last question, do all people have access, and not only access, but equal access to the law and to this idea of this thing called equal treatment? Okay, so these are questions at the end of this lesson. I'm gonna let Jose in. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to fully or more fully have an opinion about and answer. Real quick on this next slide, this is just, we're just keep it simple. If you were in here, we would do an actual activity with this. But essentially a civil liberty are those things found in the Constitution that protect us from the government. So a civil liberty are protections from the government. A civil right is when the government steps in and creates legislation for us because some group is being discriminated against. That's why it was called the civil rights movement, right? With African Americans in the 50s and 60s, really still goes on today. All right. So when you have a group of people that are being discriminated against and they fight, think of it also, you know, that Beastie Boys song, you gotta fight for your right to party. Well, you got to fight for your rights. So civil rights, you got to fight for, all right, sometimes when you're being discriminated against, where civil liberty is implanted into the Constitution already, and it's protection from the government, not necessarily from somebody being racist or, you know, sexist, you know, things like that. Okay. All right. So what does the 14th Amendment, Section 1, we're only dealing with Section 1 here. That's important. There are a couple other sections that deal with some other things, but 14, Section 1, Amendment 14, Section 1. First, though, let me talk to you about what an amendment is. You're new here. This is only our first week. An amendment is a change to the Constitution. So here's the original Constitution, right? Well, not the original, this is just a copy. Right? But so once they wrote this and they finalized this as our Constitution, our written plan of government, they created a section where you could amend it. And amend just means amend, that word, that vocabulary word just means to change. Okay. So there were 14 changes up to this point. This happened in 1868. Oh, sorry. So what does it say? It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Citizens, no state shall, you see that, no state shall make or enforce. And then you come down here, it says, again, it says, nor shall any state deprive, all right? And then here, nor deny to any person. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break this up, this section here. And what I want you to do is I want you to go to that Word document. And you're going to type what I give you, okay? You're going to type what I give you. And I just did that a couple little memes I thought were funny. Well, dad funny, not like, you know, like truly. All right, just give me a second here. So what does the 14th Amendment say about who is a citizen? The original intent of this amendment, the original intent was to protect newly freed slaves, but since then it has gone on to protect all sorts of groups of people. So the first thing though is who is a citizen, who is not a citizen. It says it in the section. You have what's called birth right. You have birthright citizenship. So what that means is if you're born in the United States or U.S. territory, U.S. military base, you are automatically a U.S. citizen. And thank God for some people. Because if they weren't, they would probably never be able to pass that test. So if you don't have birthright citizenship, there's another way you can become a U.S. citizen, and that's through the naturalization process. This process takes a couple of years to complete. Some of you know this process very well. Some of your parents have gone through this process. We are going to be looking at this process in an individual lesson later, okay? So we're going to be actually honing in on this process and looking at all the steps to this process later. So, but just understand that there is a process to come into the country and to get citizenship, and it takes quite a few years, all right? So those are the two ways that you become a U.S. citizen, all right? So now in the section 1, 14th Amendment, it talks about this thing called privileges and immunities. Well, here, what I want you to know is a privilege is something you get because of something you are. A privilege is something that you get, that you receive in life because of something that you are. All right, so let me talk to you about this in this note that I wrote here that you're going to be typing. This does not apply state to state, but this only applies within the state. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take that marijuana situation, right? In some states, it's legalized. So if a person in Colorado who lives in Colorado, he's a U.S. citizen, but he's not a citizen. There's like no citizenship of Colorado. Colorado's not a sovereign country. So he's a citizen of the United States, right? And he resides in Colorado. And in Colorado, there is legalized marijuana. Well, if he takes that marijuana and he drives to North Carolina and he lights up downtown Asheville, all right, can he be arrested? And I hope you're thinking, yes, he can be. All right. All right. He can be. Here is why. Here is why. The 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment does not guarantee him the privilege to do that in this state. It is not state to state. It's only within the state. So when he enters, or she, sorry, when he or she enters from Colorado into North Carolina, he or she does not get to bring all of her privileges into North Carolina. They only get to live within the privileges that we as North Carolina, not citizens, but residents have. Okay, does that make sense? Now, the flip is true. We aren't allowed, okay? We aren't allowed to go, or we're not allowed to smoke here in North Carolina, but if you go to Colorado, are you allowed to? Yes, but you better be careful, you spring break people, because if you come back and you have a drug test, okay, so there's some hairy things with the privileges and immunities clause, but that's the biggest thing that I need you to understand about it, okay? All right, what else does this bad boy say? Just a second. All right, let's go here down to due process of law. Due process of law, what does that language mean? It is the step by step, the step-by-step process the step-by-step process a person accused of a crime gets For example, you automatically have the right to remain silent. You have a right to a lawyer. You're going to get to go in front of a judge. You're going to get to hear the evidence against you. You're going to get a jury trial if you want. Then you can appeal that decision. All of those steps is what's called due process. In this country, unlike some other countries, even today in 2021, they do not have due process. They could literally come to your house and pick you up and make you disappear and put you in prison and sit you there and say, well, we're going to have a trial later. Well, why am I being held? Okay, who's accusing me? What am I accused of, right? Okay, a right to a speedy trial would be a part of this due process. Okay, that's guaranteed in the 14th Amendment. And then equal protection of the laws. The idea that each person shall be given equal treatment. The idea that each person will be given equal treatment within and under the law. Now, it says person there, okay? It says person there. But did they mean person or did they mean citizen? Did they just happen to say, when you look here in the middle here, it says any person? Did they happen to mean this though? Because they talked about citizenship at the start of the 14th Amendment, right? So is it any citizen or is it any person? Because that's a big difference. Because if you're not a US citizen, does that mean you don't get equal treatment? You don't get due process? All right. So we have to answer that question. Now, what branch is going to answer that question? Go ahead and unmute for me. What branch is going to answer this question?
The legislative.
Okay, the legislative is going to write the rules. So would they answer that? So they're going to be the writers of it.
Is it judicial?
Okay, the judicial branch, good. And we're early, we're only a week in, okay? You're not supposed to right away know. All right, so the legislative branch writes the rules or the laws, executive enforces those rules and laws, and then the judicial decides and interprets those rules and laws, right? So when we have an interpretation question, that's going to go to the judicial branch, all right? So what you're going to see is we got to interpret this. What does this mean? So you're going to watch another documentary. I think you're going to like this one. I hope you like the Lilly one. I think you're going to really like this one. This one's my favorite one. You're going to have this guy, this Chinese guy that comes to the country and he owns a laundromat and it's in San Francisco. And there's a bunch of Chinese in San Francisco. And so this is back in the day. And so San Francisco starts writing all these laws against the Chinese. And then one day, this guy named Yik-Wo gets caught up in it and he goes all the way to court and it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court makes a ruling about the discrimination that Yik-Wo experiences with regards to the 14th Amendment, okay? And because of this decision, this interpretation is even today in 2021, and it affects you and some of your family dependent and or your friends because of this Supreme Court case. Again, one person going all the way to the Supreme Court. So that's what I want you to do for the rest of the hour. Go in there, open that Word document. Make sure you send me Lily. Make sure you submit the Lily handout, video guide. And then also just real quick as a reminder, so I'm going to grade things. So when I grade something, like let's say I'm not going to grade anything today. I got like this stuff to teach, and then I got to create my lesson for Tuesday. So, but when I do sit down and grade your work, if you didn't turn it in on time, then it'll be graded on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, I do during while you're off doing your asynchronous stuff, I'm going in and making up any work that you turn in late. So you know that work that I graded last Wednesday? If you turn something in between now, on Wednesday and now, I'll get to it on Wednesday. All right. And sort of my idea is if you turn it in or get to it on time, I'll grade it on time. But if you turn it in late, all late work gets graded on Wednesday. All right. Just to let you know. Okay. So when you send me something, just know that I'm filing it. But I showed first semester, but you got to open it up, the Google Classroom, and then you got to sign into PowerSchool, and it's a whole process. So I like to do that all in one chunk. Okay. All right. Anyway, you guys have a great, you're off on Monday, Martin Luther King holiday, and I will see you back on Tuesday. Perfect timing because Wednesday, President-elect Biden becomes president, and we're going to tie in the last principle of this Constitution, which is called popular sovereignty, representative government. Awesome. Thank you so much for showing up. Hope you learned a little bit today. Go check out Yickwo. I think you're going to really, really like it. I'll see you.